So, music section. Let's kick things off the right way. In music section, we have new record that's kind of a surprise from OTEP. We also have, like I said to the intro of the episode, we have Mushroomhead and Slipknot going at it a little bit, but that might be a poor choice of words. And then we also have Metallica giving us some very interesting news. So let's talk music, shall we? Welcome, nerds, to the music news for the week. This is a chunk taken out of the much larger full-length show over on the main channel, youtube.com/generallynerdy. Here in the music section, we like to talk about recent releases, upcoming releases, as well as tour dates being announced, festivals being announced, just regular music-associated news and the whatnot. This week in news, this stuff happened. Starting off in follow-ups and corrections, we do have a couple of follow-ups. First up, we have Halo Effect, that record that we announced that they were working on. Well, now they have finished it, and they are looking to release said record sometime at the beginning of 24. No exact release date just yet, but they are finished with it and moving through the mixing and mastering and all that jazz. So, pretty awesome. And then we have one other follow-up. We talked previously about a single that OTEP had released that was a cover of a Billie Eilish song, which kind of struck me as a little bit odd. Well, apparently there is a new OTEP record that is coming from. The record, I did not see oh yeah, that's right. It's called The Godslayer. I did see the album title. The album is called The Godslayer, but there are a number of other covers on there, not just the Billie Eilish cover. We have an Eminem cover. We have Slipknot, Lil Peep, Olivia Rodrigo. Very interesting choices. Like, I can kind of understand the Eminem and the Slipknot stuff, but the rest of it was a little bit out of left field. So I'm kind of anticipating this. It's been a long time since I have anticipated an OTEP record, but there it is. So that's what we have for follow-ups and corrections. Let's jump into new music, shall we? In new music and videos, but this is all, I'm pretty sure this is all just brand new music. There are videos for all of these songs as well. But first up is Code Orange releasing another single. This time it's called Take Shape, featuring Billy Corgan from the Smashing Pumpkins, which is an interesting addition. It works. I wish kind of they had explored the Billy Corgan guest vocal a little bit more, because he kind of almost feels like an afterthought in this, but it still works. Like, it definitely works better than I anticipated it working. A random note about some of the newer stuff that they've released. I said previously when they dropped those first two singles off the next record, I said then that this is more in line with the Code Orange that I fell in love with on the Forever record, but it still isn't the direction I anticipated them going, so it's taking some adjusting, especially when you get stuff like this. This is still solid, and I absolutely recommend it to anyone who's interested in very experimental, hardcore, industrial combinations. But yeah, it's still a different band, I think, than when they started, which is not a bad thing, just something we gotta get used to. Then we have another one from the band Skinned. This one is called Robert Hansen. Still don't know what to make of this group. Like, it kind of feels like they're very edgelordy, because they always have very envelope-pushing, boundary-pushing lyrics and subject matter, i.e. the subject matter of this. Robert Hansen is a pretty hideous and heinous serial killer. And the last one was about a school shooting, and like, I feel like there's a very big edgelord element to this, which generally kind of turns me off, but they seem to deliver something unique in spite of that is interesting to listen to. I'm not gonna go so far as to say it's good, but it's different, and that's almost as good as good sometimes, I think. So, cautious recommend for this one. Then we have two new tracks from Lord of the Lost that have come out within the last 2 weeks of each other. Destruction Manual was the first, and Dead End was the second. And I mean, it's still Lord of the Lost, man. It's still solid goth, industrial, metal, like hybrid going on here. Lord of the Lost is just good music. These guys just know how to do the thing, and they do it damn well. There is a risk, though, I've started to notice with the last few outings, there is a risk of starting to become a little monotonous, so I don't want to see them go that route, but so far so good, man. Absolutely recommend for both these tracks. Then let's talk about this new track from Youngblood. The name of the song is Low Life. Now, I did specifically seek this one out when I saw that he is releasing new music. I wanted to do this because this is who I thought I was going to see open up for Limp Bizkit. I got Young Gravy instead because old man hears a new hip hop artist name and they sound similar, so they must be the same person, right? Definitely not the case. Youngblood, Young Gravy, very different artists. I hadn't actually listened to Youngblood previously, so this is really my first exposure to him, and gotta say, I don't necessarily see why people love this dude. Like, it's fine, it's not bad, it's very well produced, and, you know, the rhyme schemes and things that are involved, they're solid, but, like, nothing exceptional. There's no element of wow with this. This is just basic goth kind of tinged pop, hip hop, white guy music. I don't know, but it's not really much new necessarily. Just kind of a unique blending of genres that has been done, but probably not in the same way. Still nothing unique. Whatever. I'm rambling. Let's move on. Then we have, this is an interesting one because this is actually, we talked previously in the Shoutout show about how sometimes people go into the comment section of reaction videos, try and get them to do reactions to this band that they're a fan of, or that band that they're associated with, or something along those lines. And so this one actually, the first time I heard of Aesthetic Perfection was through a comment section for one of my reaction videos, and somebody saying, you need to react to this Aesthetic Perfection. And actually it was the same person giving me, I believe at this point there's been 3 different suggestions for Aesthetic Perfection, and then Aesthetic Perfection came through on my suggested feed, so I bit the bullet and said, you know what the hell, let's do this. And gotta say, was kind of surprised. The production is pretty well done. I can't necessarily fault them for production. The song itself, the name of the song, before we get too far ahead of that, is Summer Goth. And like, I can see where they're going. I feel like this is probably not the best example of who Aesthetic Perfection is, but they do all of the elements that they're trying to do. There's an element of parody involved with the majority of the sections of this song, and then the bridges are kind of what I would imagine are more in tune with their normal sound, which that was kind of the highlight of the song, were the bridges. So like, I'm down for it. We'll probably do like a proper Aesthetic Perfection reaction video, not just one of the quickies, in the future, but as it stands right now, mild recommend for Aesthetic Perfection. Then we got some new music from Aphex Twin, and this is kind of unexpected. Honestly, part of my brain kind of thought he's stopped making music, but then the other part of my brain was like, no, he's pretty prolific. He puts out a lot of stuff. So the fact that he's still putting out music shouldn't be a surprise. Though the surprise here is he's kind of started, so back in like the 90s and early aughts, from my exposure to Aphex Twin, is he did records that were like more traditionally structured music, and then he did records that were more ambient sounds and that kind of music. The ambient records were usually the more frequent ones. That's a conversation as to why, probably for a whole other video, but the big ones were the ones that like Come to Daddy was on, and Window Licker and that kind of stuff. So this is actually kind of an amalgamation of those two sounds that I was exposed to in my early days of appreciation of Aphex Twin. So it's interesting. This is not where I anticipated he would take his sound, because honestly, you listen to Come to Daddy, you listen to Window Licker, you listen to the stuff from that rough time frame, and it seems slightly more aggressive. This still is dark and creepy, just without that aggro element. So it's different, still really good, still scoring some dark, crazy movie in his head, I'm sure, and absolutely worth a listen. Just don't go into it thinking it's going to be another Come to Daddy. And then we got new music from In This Moment. The name of this song is The Purge. It's coming from their upcoming album, God Mode, out October 27th. Again, this is another band that I feel like is kind of resting on their laurels. They put out, I can't remember the name of the record, but it was a few years ago, and it was kind of like the record that Marilyn Manson never put out. That was kind of the feel. The one with... what was the name of the song? Horror, I think was the name of the song. That was their big single, and they had a couple other pretty big singles off of that were unique in this active rock, maybe light metal kind of subgenre that has been kind of carved out recently, which made them stand out. It gave them their own unique voice. This track is not that. This track is very much just kind of ducking into the crowd and losing their face in the vastness that is metal these days, is the active rock community, is the whatever octane core is what Finn McKenty would call it. And that's kind of exactly what this is. This doesn't set them apart. This is not really a recommend. Unless you are an absolute fan of In This Moment, probably not going to be the song that wins you over. Next, we're talking about a band I honestly had never heard of previously, and that is Celestial Annihilator. This is cosmic black metal, is what the technical subgenre has been labeled as. And I feel like a lot of the subgenre talk is a little ridiculous. In this case, I can understand why you would call this cosmic black metal, especially if you watch the video for it. It's very cosmic video, so that kind of adds to the feel. But, so... this is a little bit better than most of the pack of black metal. This is better than a lot of the solo dudes with a single mic that, do nothing but make it sound like crap. This is better than that, for sure. Is this Black Braid level of good? Is this Magua level of good? Not really, but it's still better than the average black metal. So on that note, it's a recommend. It's absolute, it's interesting to hear the difference between what is categorized as cosmic black metal versus Black Braid's atmospheric black metal, and how those two things can differ. It's a really interesting study in subgenre differentiation. So for that reason, absolutely check it out. If you just like black metal, you'll definitely dig this. If you're not much into black metal, it's probably not going to change your mind. And our final piece of new music this week comes from a band called, and I think I'm saying this right, Chaosis? Maybe. This is featuring vocalists from Slipknot and Mushroomhead. Well, former vocalists from both of those bands. But it's not the same two former vocalists that are going on tour together. It is Anders Kolsefni, because he is the only former vocalist for Slipknot. But the other vocalist on here that is guest vocaling is Jeffrey Nothing, who has recently left the band Mushroomhead. So very interesting usage of these two guest spot vocals. This, though, the song as a whole is just mediocre new metal garbage that didn't really get mixed very well. There's definitely a lot of very poor production involved with this, so it really turns you off to any awesomeness that could be happening with these vocals. And there is a lot of really cool potential here, because Jeffrey Nothing has an amazing voice. Anders, not necessarily amazing, but unique, yeah, sure. And I think they utilize Anders fairly well. Nothing, though, kind of falls into the mix, and you can't, if you weren't watching the video to see when he's singing, you really wouldn't be able to pick him out. So yeah, just a whole lot of wasted potential with this one. It is interesting to see just because of the anthropological kind of elements of the Slipknot and Mushroomhead getting along in a certain way, but the song itself is really hot garbage. So watch it with the volume off, maybe. So that brings us into tours and festivals. This week, the only one that I caught was Polyphia. I'm sure there were some that kind of slipped through my grasp for whatever reason, so we'll play a little bit more catch up next week. But Polyphia has announced that they are going to be adding dates to a tour that they had kind of announced. They only announced a very small amount of dates previously, so this is like a big, long, going all over North America kind of tour. The dates start September 5th in Asheville, North Carolina, runs through November 3rd in San Antonio, Texas. They will be at the Blue Ridge Rock Festival. That is a mouthful. They will be there though, like I think it's like 5 dates into this tour, and then they're going to be picked. They're going to catch some support after the Blue Ridge show. They're going to get support from Domi, JD Beck, and Midwest. Not necessarily all at the same shows. There's different legs of the tour will have different supporting acts. So definitely follow the link in the description if you want to pick up tickets or you just want to see who will be the support for the dates near you. They are going to Canada, and I think I saw 1 or 2 Central America dates as well, but I could be wrong. So definitely go double check those specifics if you're interested. From there, though, we're moving into regular ass news, and we only have one piece of just plain ass news, and that is Metallica has started a podcast. Kind of. It's not the dudes in Metallica specifically hosting a weekly show. That would be really cool, and I'm sure it's within their capabilities. It's within their wheelhouse of capability. They're just Metallica, so they don't have to. So they have 2 people who are very closely associated with the Metallica camp are hosting what amounts to effectively a once-a-week news show that has to do with everything Metallica. So presumably the boys will be showing up from time to time on the show, but like this is a thing that like they have sponsored effectively. They're the ones that like made sure it happened and probably put up some money to put it together, but they're not directly doing the thing, which was a little heartbreaking after I read those headlines and was like, oh, that's really kind of awesome. I know there's 1,000,001 podcasts right now, but like it's Metallica doing a thing, and then you read the fine print and go, oh, it's kind of associated with Metallica. It's not Metallica direct, but it kind of still, whatever. So yeah, it's available. The first episode has already come out, so it's available wherever you can find podcasts. Go listen to it. Interesting stuff, but again, you don't get a whole lot from James and the guys. That is all we have for regular ass news, which only leaves the suggestion for this episode. Suggestion this week, we're going with some hardcore punk rock from Canada, a band called Comeback Kid. The album is Wake the Dead. This is Comeback Kid in these early days is the band that kind of paved the way for things like Turnstile, Knocked Loose, those kind of hardcore bands that exist today owe a lot to bands like Comeback Kid. And I think Comeback Kid is a very good example of that style of hardcore. There's a lot of melody involved, but there's still a lot of crushing riffs and stuff like that. So whole lot of fun. It's actually a pretty short record. It's like 45, 50 minutes long, something like that. So you can listen to it real quick, probably listen to it twice. And then if you really dig it, go check out their first record, Turn It Around, because there is one of the best breakdowns ever in hardcore on that record. I just think the songwriting is a lot better on Wake the Dead. So go check out Wake the Dead from Comeback Kid as your suggestion this week. Once again, this is just the music section. There is a much longer show called The Week in Nerddom over on the main channel, youtube.com/generallynerdy. Go check out the entire show or just subscribe here and do all of the things. Appreciate your faces, nerds. Before we go though, always remember that if it's generally nerdy, it's probably here.